Today's In the File session is about creating a design system that spans multiple products. This is an amazing topic that comes up all the time. I get asked about it almost every day, and I can't wait to see what Joachim has to say. My name is Louis Oriash. I'm a designer advocate at Figma based in London, and today's guest is Joachim Halse, who's the design manager at Laerdal Medical. And I will hand it over to Joachim to kick off.
Thank you very much, Louis. Thanks for the introduction, and good morning, Europe and rest of the world. I will start sharing my screen here, and really just want to say how nice it is to see all your welcoming greetings. It's very nice to be here. I feel privileged, and I wonder if I can share my screen. You see, let me know if you're seeing it.
Perfect.
Thanks. So I'm Joachim. My background is originally in anthropology and interaction design. I worked 10 years in academia as associate professor at the Royal Danish Academy of Fine Arts School of Design before I joined Laerdal around 4 years ago. Here I'm working as design manager, heading up our UX and UI designers in Laerdal, Copenhagen. And the story of life is what I'm going to talk to you about. And behind this grandiose title lies the simple fact that life is the name of our design system in Laerdal. And as Louis already introduced, this is about creating a design system that spans multiple products and in fact also multiple brands and multiple devices. And I'm happy to kick us off now with a short introduction to Laerdal before jumping into the design system and Figma content. But first off, Laerdal provides training, educational, and therapy products that help save lives all over the world. We have R&D offices in Norway, Denmark, Washington, Texas, and India. And our mission or strategy goal for 2030 is to help save 1 million more lives every year. And we're very proud of this and a very mission-driven company. And I'd like to share just a little video, about a minute's duration, a 1.5 minutes duration, to give you a sense of the workplace in Copenhagen, just so you get a feeling of the place. I have included sound, and I'm going to stop it after a minute, but let's just kick it off. Here we go.
For more than 15 years, the Laerdal Copenhagen office has been located in an old warehouse at the waterfront of Copenhagen. Hi, I'm David. Welcome to our offices. Our field of expertise has always been digital learning. And every quarter, the learning products here are used by almost 1 million healthcare providers in the US alone. This couldn't have been done without our strong partnerships. But it couldn't have been done either without the unique mix of talents we have here at the office. The smart creatives here have a broad range of educational backgrounds, and they bring their competences together to continue to push the capabilities of our digital learning products. So a lot of talent and a lot of dedication. And together these smart creatives form what we'd like to call the Center of Excellence for Digital Learning. Currently, we're working on bringing additional business and mission value to some of our existing products, such as adding a skills training component to our NRP program and creating higher fidelity and new modules and features to our vSIM product line. We're also shaping and developing a new accessible analytics platform so we can measure and improve everything we do. And we're exploring and concepting on the next VR and AR learning experience to be delivered by Laerdal.
All right, I'm going to stop it here. But as you can see, pretty amazing place to work. We're stoked to have a nice working culture. And as you can also see, a lot of opportunities for digital interfaces and improving them. And that's what we're talking about today. So if I can shift, jumping ahead here. this is the slide that I was intending to show. The agenda for the talk today, I will cover the baseline, meaning where were we before our design system? What assets are we looking at today in Figma? We'll touch upon the importance of building community around the design system. Of course, adoption is everything. If we have strong community and lots of components, but no adoption, it doesn't really work. And then moving on to design at scale, what does it really, what are the implications of having such a massive ripple effect? If we change one thing here and affects so many products, how do we go about handling that? It requires a good bit of governance. And then towards the end, I will touch upon the life satisfaction of our users, which are not the end users, not the learners of our using our products, but the designers and developers across Laerdal who's using the Figma-based design system called Life. And finally, some notes about integrating design and code, which is also where we have the biggest next chapter of to accomplish, and then some goals for making this integration even smoother than today. All right, so that's the agenda. Let's jump into it. Design-wise, in 2018, this was pretty much where we were. We had some challenges with inconsistent look and feel across our digital products. We had duplicated work efforts because every team was inventing some of the same UI components. And we had inefficient handovers from design to development. In the worst cases, because we were using flat image files as handover documents, so all specs had to be delivered as meta information. And that obviously created a lot of misunderstandings and clarifications further down the line. I don't know, I get some challenges shifting this. Okay, here we go, shifting slides. The objectives for the design system was already at the outset, and they also hold true today, is to enable consistent and brand loyal look and feel across all of Laerdal's digital products, and to speed up the design and handover to development. This is just a high-level look at the timeline. We had the first idea of maybe we should have something like a design system. We've seen other companies do this, and it seems to make sense. Seems to be the answer to some of our challenges. In 2018, a year later, we launched the first version of Life, and now a bit more than another year later, so 1 year birthday of Life was celebrated in September, and here we are today. But first, let's just take one more look at the baseline. This is the order that I wanted to show. This is baseline. This is what some of our products look like in 2018. And as you can see, well, we can't see that these are all products that are doing a great job of serving people's needs and training professionals and lay people how to save lives in emergencies. But they also look like they're from 17 different companies and made on different technical platforms. And we would like to do something about that. So we inquired with our designers across the company and front-end developers, how do you work today? How do you collaborate? And how do you hand over? And one of the questions was, how do you communicate spacing, pixels alignment, and that sort of thing? And one of our designers, Hector here, basically answered, that's a good one. We didn't. So this was the situation we're trying to remedy. And here we are, core assets in 2020. And I'm not going to take you through the details, but just give you a high-level overview. But for example, styles, they live in Figma, and we cover colors, spaces, and grids, shapes, typography, strokes, etc. We also have a bunch of components, and we cover everything on the bulleted list here that has a check mark. So you can see we're pretty well set in terms of covering basic UI components. We also, in addition to the UI components, have a very successful illustration library because it turned out very quickly, or very quick and efficient for designers to, if they just get a core set of illustrations, to customize these in ways that still create a coherent look and feel in the concept illustrations used in our products, and rapidly increasing that library by every designer, just customizing these to meet their own products needs. And we're looking now at 1,400 components and 174 styles in one Figma file alone. This is what we call the Live Master Library. We're now at the version 1.15.0 and hitting some performance barriers. The file is getting super heavy, and we're starting to offload some of the content to what we call extension libraries. For example, the illustration library has recently become a library on its own, separated out from the master library, but still part of the design system as such. We could go look right in the file and stay true to the concept of this series of presentations. So let me just shift to the Figma dashboard and show you. Let's start from the beginning. This is the organization dashboard from Laerdal. See, we have all the teams here, and basically just wanted to show you the stats in analytics that I had screen captured a moment ago. And turning on the libraries here, or showing the libraries, you can see also that we have a bunch of libraries. And right now I have enabled the illustration library for the organization and the master library, which contains the over 1,000 components and 170 styles. We can also see that it's being used pretty much, but I'll get back to that in a second. So building community. Struggling to move my Figma app around underneath the Zoom toolbars here. Forgive me, but here we are. Building community is one place where we really made a big effort from the get-go. So how did we get to this amount of components and the adoption that I'm going to show you in a minute? And one of the important answers is we started out from the get-go with building the community. So we realized the design system is not made by a small elite team and then dictated on to everybody else. It's a mutual effort. And that comes through collaboration with trust and establishing fun moments of working together, and thereby shared ownership among all of the designers who are using and contributing to the design system. For example, we presented the idea of a design system traveling around to our R&D centers, presented to many colleagues, and generally got a very welcoming reception. We tried to make it fun at the launch event, where we printed out our key components as physical objects, in this case on foam boards in mega size, and made some small exercises, basically asking people to try to build some digital apps with these foam pieces. And it can seem like a small gimmick, but the sense of joy in doing this together and exploring, discussing something that's, for example, the spacing, the details of a design system, for example, the small pinkish squares that are held on this image to the left. This is spacing, and just raising that kind of discussion with all kinds of different designers, that spacing actually matters, and we can create systems for using space, was very successful in terms of building this community around life. People struggling here to get their say on how a CPR training app, oversized and in foam board, should be built. Okay, slide not shifting again. Oops, here we go. Maybe the file is a bit heavy for this presentation style. That's probably why it was loading slow and I didn't realize it was just loading. I hope you now see a bunch of pictures on one slide. And again, they are all showing the effort made to connect with people, truly understand who are the designers and front-end developers who need to use Life if we were to have such a thing. And we're now talking 2 years back. Life came to be, and as you now realize, it is not only a ambitious design system, it is also a design system that tries to be fun and community driven. One of the sort of examples of that I'd like to highlight as a small technique, if you will, is connected to the name Life. And you can ask, why is it called that? And it's basically because it's very closely connected to our company's mission. Our mission is helping save lives. Short and important tagline for our company. It's been the mission for more than 60 years. And life is also what we celebrate when we're working together like this. It's the outcome of our work, but it's fun to work with that because the puns are all over the place. And let me just again shift my slide. Here we go. We asked our user base in Laerdal to come up with fun slogans that included the word life. And collecting all the proposals, we selected some important ones and printed them on small stickers and brought these to the various launch events as a kind of a awareness raising campaign. For example, life is better when we work together. And then, of course, the URL for the design system. And then life happened. Life is a wonderful thing. How's life treating you? Around here, life is good. So people started putting these stickers on their laptops, and I'm sorry you can't see the back of my laptop, but of course it's full of them. We also realized we have a colleague called Life. That was kind of a fun incident. What his title is the director of programs, and we were allowed to offer Life a promotion to now become official mascot of our design system. So Life Henriksen, our amazing program director and also official mascot of Life, is the best and spreading joy in our design system. Back to the more serious part of community building, we had a quite ambitious training and onboarding program, making people aware of the basic opportunities within Figma as a tool, but also the more advanced stuff that you can do with Live components. And for example, in terms of accessibility, as you can see here, this is a workshop file prepared for around 13 or 14 colleagues who are working in the same file to solve the assignments that we had created in terms of working with layer order, responsiveness, color contrast, and putting it together in a very short sequence of screens. And what consistently amazed our colleagues who weren't aware of Figma at the time was how awesome multiplayer is. I mean, the fact that we have real-time collaboration, and you can see your colleagues in here helping you out, or just being inspired and stealing what you have, is such a game changer for the collaborative nature of design in our company. And I think no one has really seen that before, or no one had seen that before Figma to the extent that we can do this in Figma. So thanks a lot for that. I think that really is the next level design collaboration. So just to sum up, what do we do to build community? make sure to onboard and train every single user that we need to be compliant and understand the tool. We run a help desk that we monitor closely and answer within a couple of hours, at least each day. We what do you call that? Moderate discussion channels on our teams. We set all Figma teams as open and encourage designers to steal with pride. There's nothing wrong in stealing the good stuff from our colleagues. And we make shout outs when that happens. So look at this guy, he made that component or put it to use in this special way. And now all of a sudden we see it in other products as well. Congratulations, well done. We make it pretty clear that anyone can contribute to life. If you do something great, no matter where you are in the organization, if we spot it or somebody else spots it and submits it to our awareness in the design system team, we immediately react to it, try to quality assure it, and raise it to a level where it can be published with the core components in life. So this is, again, it's not an elite team deciding for everybody else. This is about being shepherds. This is about facilitating the identification of best practice and then using Figma and Life as a platform to leverage that best practice. Make many shout outs to our contributors to make sure that they feel seen and acknowledged, and always try to make it fun to take part of the project. All right. Let me just have a sip of water, excuse me. And I can see we're around halfway time-wise, so it's a good time to talk about adoption, because one thing is to have 1,000 components and lots of users, but is Life actually used for anything valuable? And one indicator is that we have more than 400 users in Figma. And we try to manage that user base pretty carefully. So we use the CSV export from Figma and combine that with the onboarding and training sessions that we're tracking on our own. I here screenshot a little snippet where I left out the names and emails, but you can see how, for example, we're tracking what proficiency level each user is if we know it. Sometimes we don't know it, of course, and then we try to get that knowledge. But that really helps us to know who can be pioneers of Life in Figma and help others. And it also helps us understand if some products seem to be struggling to be compliant, or teams are struggling to be compliant with Life. We know where to assist with training. Another indicator of adoption is, of course, if the components are used. And again, thanks to the analytics capability of Figma, it's very easy to track that. In our case, the primary button in the medium size, normal state, is the most used Life component. It's used more than 7,000 times in different instances by 35 teams and in 242 files, which makes us incredibly proud and happy. It can seem like a small thing, but you can imagine if you had recreated the button just half these times, that would have been a silly waste of time. So it's not a very complicated component, but it really is adopted. We have this week 26,000 inserts, and the concept of an insert covers when any designer is grabbing a master component from the Life master library, this one file only, and inserting that as an instance into his or her own design file. Again, we could jump into the file, but I think I'm actually going to skip that because it's showing the same thing as I have in the screenshot here, which is basically that over the last 30 days, our inserts from the Life master library vary from, let's see, 10,000 to 25,000 per week. And you can also, if I go back one. You can also see that in the list of top teams, the Life team itself luckily is down on a 4th place. We wouldn't want our design system team to be the top users of the components. And nicely in front, we have our RQI partners, which is a mega team with more than a handful of products being in top with 30,000 inserts, which covers for almost half of the use of Life this week. All right, enough of this. Let's move on. We have a list of products. I'm not going to dive into that because they don't make much sense to you anyways. But again, we're tracking what products are being implementing Life and which ones are launching with Life compliance. Here's a couple of screen samples of products that are using Life components, and they cover various types of e-learning websites, training, hands-on skills practice training solutions, for example, the mobile app here. And they're pretty much all over the place in terms of the types of digital learning solutions. But moving on to the next chapter of this presentation is to zoom out a little bit, out away from the components and think about design at scale, because that's an amazing opportunity to have small changes, easy to make changes, ripple out to a bunch of products and many, many instances. But it comes also with a burden of responsibility, which is not necessarily a key feature or a favorite feature of designers' work. So I think this is one of the places where designers really can learn a lot from how software developers have been working for a while. Here we go. Design at scale is here illustrated by a megaphone where we have the Laerdal brand at the mouth, at the speaking end of the megaphone, and the brand identity is translated into a design language that again lives as styles and components in Figma that in turn becomes products that reach the world. And design at scale basically covers the fact that we can make a small change at this very small end. For example, changing a brand color or the corner radius of a button. And very, very easily, we will ripple that out to many, many, many instances and products. And in fact, Life is covering multiple brands, multiple products. In the parentheses here, it says 100 plus, but that's actually more the ambition or the sort of hypothetical potential scope of Life, in the sense that Laerdal has more than 100 digital products. But as you just saw, we've only implemented Life compliance in, let's just say, 15 products. And then multi-device, more or less all of them. I mean, we have Laerdal digital solutions out on mobile, on tablet, laptops, desktops, projectors, and VR. So it's technically also a bit complicated to make this work. And obviously, we can't just change things at will. We have to be really diligent about what quality improvements or what we think are improvements before we just push them on to everybody else and rely on the corporate policy that they actually have to use it. So what we do to responsibly design at scale is we run weekly library updates. We use semantic versioning, meaning that major updates are distinct from minor updates, which again are distinct from bug fixes. We write extensive release notes. We use warning time whenever there's something that's potentially breaking designs, and run the dialogue with the affected teams. And we use extension libraries for special brand or special product needs. Just gonna quickly show you the Teams channel where we do some of this. So here, I hope I'm showing you the Microsoft Teams that we're using, and the team is called Life, Laerdal's design system. We have a channel called updates to life. And in this channel, you'll see a bunch of these updates that are weekly. And if I just stop at one of them, for example, this one from November 13th, due to potential breaking of some components, go through a list so you're well prepared. And for example, we're deleting many of the toast components as the new toast with auto layout is customizable and covers all. Thank you, Figma, for auto layout. That's just an example of how we're trying to keep people informed of things that will change and give them a chance to speak up and yell, "What are you doing? You can't do that. Don't touch my toast." In this case, toast were not a problem to remove because we could also see in analytics that they weren't used except from one team, and we could just reach out to them and help them update to the newer toast. So to implement life and ensure compliance, we need governance. We need some rules of engagement. We need to know who are making the decisions on what to publish and what not to publish. Who's deciding if this product release is good enough, life compliant enough to be released, and who's accountable for it in the end, and what happens if it's not compliant. So the most important thing to say about this in our case is that the corporate compliance policy of life is anchored with this cool cat right here, our Chief Operating Officer of Christian Dybdahl. And that just makes a lot of discussions unnecessary. We don't have to discuss with all kinds of product teams who are in a hurry, and we have to get this out, why life compliance is important, because COO says so. That's not full story, of course, but it just helps a lot to gain momentum. We also added checkpoints to Laerdal's development process. So basically at the concept level, every new product is asked, does this product comply with the Laerdal design system? Yes or no? If it doesn't, well, why not? So just to sum up how we secure governance and compliance, beyond the two first points already mentioned about COO anchoring and the integration with the product development process, we also consider this a behavioral change in the community. I mean, we want people to start using life, and that is not a checkmark game. It's not just compliant or not compliant, where we force with a big stick, you have to do it. It's something where we want people to understand the rationales and benefits, and we want basically to make that happen in one very, very important way, and that is it has to be faster to use live components than to go rogue. So it must be the quickest way for a designer to open up Figma, find this little button and drag it onto his artboard rather than invent a new button. And I think we're on our way to succeed with that. Okay, a couple of minutes more. I will skip some sections here to actually get to the ending. And one second to last step of that is the life satisfaction survey sent out to our Figma users that shows us that 85% of our users would likely or very likely recommend life to a colleague. They connect life with the words consistent, good looking, easy to use, and time saving. And a couple of ones impractical and ineffective. But that's not too many to stop us now. So going on, this is just a bunch of happy quotes celebrating how life has made their design practice easier. Using design files has never been this easy and organized. Sounding like a Figma commercial here, but it's true. So the last step of the presentation is indicated by this quote from a business perspective. I wish it was easier to take pixel perfect live designs and implement them quickly. Stakeholders get tricked by the fact that we can very, very quickly move from napkin sketch to something that's high fidelity. It looks like it's a finished product. You can click around in the prototype. But in reality, it's not it's not connected to our sensors of the mannequin, so you can't give real learner feedback. It's not enabling data tracking or analytics. So they get a little disappointed when it takes so long to then move from this awesome prototype to a functional product in code. And that's our next chapter, closing the gap between design and code. I'm just gonna show one little thing about this, which is here. Our coming goals for design and code in life is to reduce parallel UI code efforts for the multiple products and to increase the consistency in implementation, because one thing is to have great consistency in design files in Figma, but if the end products don't actually look like that, it's not very helpful. And obviously shrink design to code process so we reduce our time to market. This is the overview of how we see moving at a very high level from design at the left to the technical platforms and the coded products to the far right. And where we focus right now is on this middle ground, the front-end framework, where we have a bunch of different technical platforms with different technical requirements for the front end. And it looks like if we would invest more in a shared React.js UI component library, we'd be able to serve up quite a big portion of our technical platforms and products at once, and thus reduce the duplicate coding efforts. But this is ongoing work. I can show you that we do have actually a React library. It's definitely not complete, but it's there. And it does include some runtime presentation using Storybook, which is what I'm showing here, basically meaning that the live components are available as a React component library. And Storybook, which is this tool I'm showing right here, is showing the components to the left. And when you click on it, you can see the visual representation of the UI component at the top window, and it's actually functional. You can click it. I mean, nothing happens when you click something, but you can see the hover states and different dynamics and transitions when you move around with it. And you can get the React code. So that's something we're looking into systematizing and using to really get better code integration. And I think I will stop here just to make sure that we have time for some discussion. And just thank you all for listening. This, of course, is none of my work. This is all due to our great team with Christian, Søren, Chris, Troels, Kevin. And also a shout out to Robin Klein-Schipphorst, who is a consultant who helped us get the design system project started. And again, thanks for listening. Looking forward to hear what you think.
Thank you so much, Joachim. That was amazing. Before I do jump into the Q&A questions, would it be possible for us to take a look at one of your library files?
Yes. So we could, for example, take, let me show you the way to get to it also. Again, the dashboard here, we have all our teams, and the ones that I'm looking for now is Life, the Laerdal design system. And here we have the Life master library. And I already had it open. You see, we have a structure where, for example, the colors are presented. You read about what to use them for, what not to use them for, and scrolling down, we get to all the components. And yeah, anything in particular we should look at?
I think some people just wanted to see maybe how you're structuring maybe the buttons page or something like that.
Yes, this is something that is a work in progress because we are a multi-product design system. We are having the challenge compared to other design systems that focus on, or basically split up their design systems for each for one product or each for one device. We're trying to do everything at once. And that seemed like a really good idea in the beginning. And then we were drowning in, for example, button variations. There's just so many. I mean, we have the primary, secondary, and tertiary, and then we have them in different sizes. And then we have them all in different states. And you can imagine if you have to have a component for each of these, it's just hundreds of components right there. And it becomes really difficult to choose from the asset panel, which one should I use? So we're really looking forward to implementing variants and as a new way of structuring the components so they can be more easily categorized. But we've only done the first small experiments with this.
Great.
So I don't think this is something to really, this is not best practice after we have variants. It's too, maybe for visual overview, you can actually see what they are, but in daily use, we should be using the variants.
Okay.
And I think maybe also, my hope is that it matches better how components are organized in code, which is my hunch that it is.
Yeah, we've actually had a question come in about how you manage to smooth that handover between the designed components and the coded components. How does that communication happen? Who's responsible for that?
Yes, good question. Thanks. Let me show, and again, I have to pull down the Figma a little bit just to see it underneath this. Like this. So we can take a concrete example. I'm going to open RQI Partners is a there's a mega team that holds all projects and files for this partner. And we can go to RQI 2020. Let's take analytics.
Sorry, could you just close the little calendar pop-up as well? Thank you.
Sorry about that. This one. So this is a specific design file, and you see the structure we have here of starting from the bottom up, maturity-wise, playground, then some design iterations, and above this little separator, we have the stuff for the developer. And the first page from the bottom is a checklist for design handoff. So as an example, does this design file adhere to Life's design language? Are colors, fonts, grids, and effects using styles? Yes. Are components taken from and linked to the latest version of Life Master Library? No. I don't know why, and I'm curious to know why. But anyways, this is aligning expectations between the designer and the front-end developer, because the developer is intended to basically look at the screens for implementation, look at the components, and look at the responsiveness. And when that's all done, there should be no surprises. And maybe accessibility is not part of this release. And then that's fine that we haven't, for example, covered focus order, which is not in this case, but everything else is covered. And then at the end, a little reminder, the handoff is only half or less of the job. The designer and developer needs to talk together continuously. And developers obviously use the inspect tab in Figma to get some of all of the details of the specs. But in our experience, it's never done with just using the inspect. You have to talk about things because there are always things that the designer haven't thought about when the front end gets starting.
Sure. And is there a team working full-time on these libraries?
The Life team that I showed you before consists of 4 or 5 people, and we generally use 1 day per week. We dedicate our Wednesdays to this. So in general, right now, it'll be 1 full-time employee in total. So 5 people spending one day per week equals 1 full-time employee. But this is in maintenance mode. We spent more time when we were building up the library with the number of components and just developing the whole system. It was probably 3 times as much in that period.
Okay. And typically, how long does it take the full process of let's create a component, let's design it, turn it into a component in Figma, create the library, get that coded? How does that end-to-end process typically work?
That's a good question. Because we have so unsystematic code representation currently, it's very ad hoc. It's really difficult to say.
Okay.
I wish I had a number for that because it will be a great measurement, but I can't give you that. Yeah.
Next page.
Yeah.
Someone's come in with a really great question about how you managed resistance from the internal team. Was there any resistance with rolling the system out? Did anybody have any particular pain points with the whole process?
We were very concerned about when we started out that people might feel their creativity constrained. Who are these guys coming to tell us how to make a button? And I think because of the extensive community building and aligning expectations, what is this and what do you think it should be and how can it meet your needs and our responsiveness to the needs that we hear from the community, we really haven't had it. People generally just feel this is so much faster than before. I don't feel, I mean, every now and then there are some special needs. Could we have this in other colors, or why does it have to be this big? Or, and in most cases, we're able to find a pragmatic version or a solution where if it truly is a need that is grounded in the product needs or market need or usability need for that product, we're not sort of too strict on saying you can't have it. We're just going to say, okay, you can have it, but it won't be part of the life library. We'll have to make an extension library to mark this out as an exception.
Nice.
Yeah.
And what was the biggest challenge, other than just the planning scale, of trying to consolidate all of these different products into one system?
So far we haven't hit them design-wise, and I think that will still come. For example, with VR, we're not very mature, but I'm sure that's not just another button. I mean, it's a much bigger sort of paradigm shift in how you interact with VR solutions in terms of the interface. But so far, I think the biggest has been in terms of integrating with code and development. We have had a couple of attempts to integrate a developer on the live team, but for various reasons, it never really came about. So it feels like we are ahead with design and lacking a bit on the code side or development understanding side with life as a design system. And we always had the ambition to really have these sister disciplines in life, but we for some reason are just moving quicker on design than with development.
Mm-hmm. And with the VR components in mind, how are you managing to get those handed over? Is there extra documentation required? What's the process for those ones?
With VR?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's too early to say. We don't have any live approved VR components yet. We are still at the markup level or experimental level where it's one-off UI designs by a guy who's skilled in life. So he's trying to use life principles and life colors and shapes and whatnot. But it's too early to say how the finish of the full VR interface will fit into life I imagine as an extension library, but it's too early to say.
Sure. And just thinking about more on an abstract basis, you're talking about all these different platforms and programs that you're developing, all the different products. So you're requiring a massive team, lots of designers. As a company or as a design operation, how are you managing the hiring process to ensure you're getting a diverse candidate set, that you're hiring people that aren't just looking like you and I?
Are you looking at the illustration that I'm just sharing right now? That could be a fair response to this illustration, which is a reasonable critique. I think for the life system team is a very homogeneous crowd, and that's not on purpose. In general, Laerdal Medical has a very diverse workforce, as we're a global company, and we're not using quotas to reach this diversity, but because we're so mission driven, it just comes. I mean, and global. Our applicants are rarely just one of a kind. It's a bit of a coincidence that our life team is all made up of white-looking, middle-class-ish guys.
It would be great to have a process to address that one, I'm sure.
Yes.
And regarding the team structure and the process internally, what is the contribution process for the design system? Is there a formal structure with how that gets managed, or is it more of an open and collaborative session?
We have both. We have a formal one, which is you go to our URL, life.laerdal.com, and you hit the button, submit a change or request a change, and that opens a form where you can write what your proposal is or what your need is, and you can attach, if you already made a draft proposal, you can attach it. That flows directly into our backlog in the live team, and from there on we consider it. Not that many people use that formal process. Most people reach out to us more like person to person, because I know I said we have more than 400 users, but the contributors are probably only, it's less than 50 who actively make components, because they're just so skilled that they can actually make something that's better than what we have, or something filling gaps we don't cover yet. And these people we usually just know, and they know us, so they're just reaching out on a more person-to-person level.
Sure. And on that process level, how do you actually manage the version controlling on a very sort of, maybe dive a bit deeper into that? I know you've got minor and major versions, but it'd be great to hear how that actually works.
Yeah, how does that actually work? Well, every week we look at the end of every week. We look at our Trello-based backlog and say, what did we actually accomplish? What have we worked on? And if any task is done, we look at that, we sort them, and then see, okay, which of these are ready enough to be published. Then we write the release notes that I shared with you. Maybe I should do that again. In here, where we sort of write what the news are and what you should be aware of. And then we save the version of the master library file, give it a new update, the versioning number. So if it's a bug fix, we just change the two last digits. If it's a minor update that might potentially break something, it's the two middle digits. And if it's a major update, it's the first digit. But as you can see, we're still at level 1 of the major updates. And only in case of minor updates that may cause potential breaking of some components, we give a week's warning notice, which is what you see here. It says it will be published in a week from now. And then the week later, we can scroll down and say, oh, here it is. Today we're announcing it, and that this is the same time as we actually hit publish in Figma. And we announced them last week, so you should be ready for them. And then boom, the toasts are gone, and the Figma file is now called 1.14. Actually, we're now at 1.15, so there should be another one down here. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, sure. It's just good to see. I think this setup that you have is amazing with the frequent updates to the team. I think it's also really important for a growing team, and when you're operating at this scale, to have that open communication, super important.
Yeah.
Somebody has asked whether you could explain a bit more about how you managed the extension libraries. When that happens, what typically goes in, how sophisticated they become.
Yeah, that's a good question. Also because they're not the main focus of life. They have a very small subset of stakeholders, because it's someone who, for example, if the RQI P team that I briefly showed you in Figma, they're actually a different brand, and they share, let's just say, 80% of the brand identity and design language with Laerdal. But there are some exceptions, and to not pollute the master library with those exceptions, but still make them available, because they, as you can see, they almost constitute 50% of the use of life. So we want it to be very easy for them to get to their special components. They live in an extension library, and it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say parking ground, but it's kind of it's a temporary solution where we can offer the same type of efficient use for the designers of the RQI products, but we don't pay a lot of attention to how it's structured in the extension libraries and who exactly gets to do what with them, because it's maybe only a handful of people, and there's not, we're mimicking the file structure. So for example, in the master library, we have this file structure or page structure where we have the design language at top, and then the components at the bottom of the pages here. And we mimic that in the extension libraries, but there's maybe only 2 different pages with components. and one page with design language. For example, the logos would be different, and one or two colors would be different. So it's a relatively thinly populated extension library. And then again, most of our Laerdal products, they don't need an extension library. So yeah, it's a bit of I think it's a good solution for now, but it's not as detailed thought out as the master library and the release cycles of that.
Okay. And when it comes to creating new components, is that something that you have to have an internal debate about, or whether you can repurpose existing components? How does that conversation typically happen?
That typically happens within the life team when a request comes from a product team. Usually the life team can educate the requester a little bit and say, hey, we actually got this other component that more or less does what you're asking for. Could that fill the need? If it really can't, then we are, of course, all ears. What more should it do? We thought it was amazing. Can it really be even greater? And then if we agree that it can, we collaborate with that contributor. Either he or she is skilled enough to just make it and then submit it for life review, or he or she is not, and then the life team will have to put it on the backlog, and we'll probably work on it within 1 or 2 weeks, depending on the complexity of the component. And then, of course, it'll be life compliant from the get-go. So it's more, the review is more the other way. Is this good enough for your need? And then we'll publish it.
Great. I've just got 2 more questions. The first one is, have you as a team considered the return on investment from all this work that you've put into this design system?
Yes, I have. For the board meeting, 1 year board meeting, which was a couple of months ago, we lined up the cost, the estimated cost of running the team, to the Figma tool, to developing libraries, and then held that up against the value that we gained. But we stayed away from estimating the monetary value or time value of the actual time saved. Basically because there's so much guesswork in that, and none of us are economically, magicians. So I know it can be estimated, but we basically decided we have so much evidence from our designers that they all say we're working faster. The product owners say we get the products out quicker. The marketing and branding departments say, hey, we see suddenly the products start looking the same. That there was really no doubt about the consistency value gains that we're getting here, and the cost is not overwhelming compared to that value. So we could get more detailed in the numbers, but we didn't feel the need to go there.
That's really good to hear. And then lastly, what's the future for the design system?
If we look far ahead, I think somebody will soon invent. That was kind of a contradiction, but there will soon be an invention that we will benefit from in the further future, and that invention will be to get everything, every component and positioning and constraint from Figma exported automatically to, for example, React code. When that happens, any change we do in Figma will be instantly, at the push of a button, available in code. And that means we can sort of automate the whole pipeline from Figma to product in code, and that's going to revolutionize this pipeline of the design system. Of course, it's a bit in the future, because even if it was invented tomorrow, which I think it could be, I mean, it's not. We've made proofs of concept that worked already a year ago in Laerdal. Just haven't had the bandwidth to work further on them. So I'm pretty sure it will happen very soon. It raises, of course, many questions about how robust would that automatic export be? Can we depend on it so much that I change the corner radius in here and I want that to ripple out to all our products that already launched? I mean, theoretically, it could be done, but of course, introducing a huge risk to everything of introducing small errors. But I think that's where we're going.
Great. I look forward to the future. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Joachim, for your excellent presentation and your heartfelt answers. As I said, this will be on YouTube next week. Thanks again, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you, guys.